Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, June the 4th, Friday morning. I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and this is a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And I've got my chat room open. If you want to sit in there, that's great. And I have allergies, so my voice is terrible, and I've got some summertime allergies going on here. And so my voice is not too good, but I'll try to speak clearly and so you can understand what I'm saying. And I'm just glad to be here having coffee and waking up, and just wanted to look at the coping lists from the Child Abuse Monument, the IrvingStudios.com Child Abuse Monument, Child Abuse Survivor Monument website. That is Michael C. Irving's website, and he is a psychotherapist and a sculptor, and he is a survivor himself. And that website is awesome. It's got some great information on there. Not only that, but it talks about the Child Abuse Survivor Monument that is in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And you can check that out on the website. That's http://www.irvingstudios.com. And then it'll take you to the link for the Child Abuse Monument. And you can actually just type into your browser Child Abuse Monument, and it will come up. And that's a great website. I really highly recommend it. And for survivors, and really for anybody, right? We all should be taking a look at that. There's the monument that they did create is that was his creation, really. He had survivers of child abuse actually contribute to this project, and they all got to submit, a handprint or poetry or something that they created that helped them to validate what happened to them and to help them to cope and to learn to heal from the abuse that they suffered as children. So I really think it's awesome, and I hope everybody will go take a look at it. I haven't been there to see it personally, but I have seen it on the web, and it's just awesome. So, what I wanted to keep looking at here that we were talking about Wednesday's coping lists, and this is such a good thing to have, when you're feeling you just can't cope and things are just kind of spiraling downward. And if we're on our healing journey and then things just kind of go bad, and all of a sudden things can trigger us, and we might be feeling all of a sudden, we might have been able to handle something for a while, and then all of a sudden it just seems too overwhelming. If we have our coping lists, then we can go back to those coping lists and figure out what helped us to get through before and what works, So that's the whole thing. I think it's important for people to know what works for them to help them to cope and to help them to feel better. And, lots of people have problems with stress and stress management, and coping lists are good for everybody, not just people who are survivors of child abuse or domestic violence or sexual assault or exploitation. Coping lists are good for everybody, really, because everyone experiences stress. There isn't one person on the planet that probably can say that they haven't experienced some stress, you know what I mean? Especially when you get to adulthood and have to go through all the things in life that life throws at us, right? So that's why I think coping lists are so important. And what works for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for somebody else. But that's why we have to personalize our own coping lists, right? And so that's what we'll continue looking at. And, it's not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates or anything like that. I'm just a person, a private citizen, who pays to do my own blog talk show. And I really think that there's not enough information out there about survivors of child abuse. And I think that there's a lot of voices out there, thank God. I really just wanted to be one more voice to add to theirs, because we need everyone's voice in on this. As far as the issues of child abuse, the more people remain silent about child abuse, the more likely it will continue, because child abuse is always being hushed up. The abusers don't want it talked about because they want to continue doing what they do, or they don't want to get busted and have to, do time or whatever. So abuse is quite often covered up, Survivors quite often don't want to talk about it because it's so hurtful and so harmful, right? And they don't necessarily want to deal with it. And then others just want to keep it very much to themselves. And that's sad, because it's suffering in silence, right? Which is what I did for many years. And, it's unfortunate, really. Abuse needs to stop. And it is going to be a huge job, no doubt. And I think that it's going to take society to change, and that's why the whole the whole world is going to have to change the way that they view and treat children and each other, right, in order to make this place a better place. And so, I just thought, hey, I'll be one more voice. I have nothing better to do with my spare time. And I fight for child rights. I'm going to spend the rest of my life fighting for child rights to maintain and uphold the rights of the child. And so, it's and human rights as well. But my focus is child rights because children cannot stand up for themselves, and they really need our voices. They need all of us to stand up, right? So, and as a survivor of child abuse myself, which there's people in my family that just think, that it was just no big deal, but it's because they're ignorant, see? And that's the whole issue, right, with child abuse. Most people are very ignorant when it comes to child abuse, and most people who abuse children, of course, are very ignorant. So if you grow up in a home with abuse, chances are, there was some very ignorant, backwards thinking going on there, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing that to their children in the first place. And then people who support abusers, they have a hard time getting around the fact that they may have well like these people, because abusers are just normal people too. It's just that they abuse children, right? They can be funny and they can have a good time. They can laugh and they can joke. They're part of society. They're walking amongst us all the time, every day. And it's not like they have a special picture on their forehead that says, "Hey, I'm a child abuser. I abuse my child," or, "Hey, I'm a child sexual predator. Welcome to my world." They fit in with society. They work at regular jobs. Chances are you are working with someone who has abused a child in one way or another. It's just people taking their whatever it is, it's whether it's anger or frustration or there's some sort of mental illness, right, that they feel that they can just do whatever they want to a child. And they have a lot of support generally, because they might be very friendly and they might look to society to be upstanding citizens, and no one would believe that they could do that to a child or that they would do that to a child. And then you have people that think it's okay to abuse children. And, of course, it's against the law, so that just proves right there. It is not okay to abuse children in any way. And so that whether that's physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, sexual, it's all against the law. It's all extremely wrong, and we have to do something to stop it. So that's why I'm doing this show. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I really highly I would recommend that you get someone to listen to the show with you and to listen to pretty much everything you're doing online. Check it out. Have an adult check out what you're doing online. You could save your life. And you could because honestly, if you go onto the FBI's website and some of these other websites out here that are available for people to see, you'll see just how many child sexual predators are actually online at any given time. And they are looking to get a hold of children, and they will use any means that they can. And so I just ask that young people make sure that you have an adult know what you're doing online at all times, because you can save your life or at least try to protect yourself, you know what I mean? Even with protection, and even if you have the information, you're still at risk. But at least if your chances are better if you have the education and the information, right? So make sure you just start typing in internet safety, child online safety. FBI's website has a great website on how to keep yourself safe online, right? So it's so important. You just cannot just, pretend that this is not happening, because it is happening. It's happening every day. And the issues surrounding child sexual predators and child exploitation, and it's just, it's out of control, and that's why the FBI and other agencies around the world are actually trying to put a stop to it. And you kids are really at risk, you young people. It's really horrible. It's really sad, that this world has always been such a sick and sad place, right? But, no sense in living in fear, right? You just need to get the education and remember never to give out any personal information. Don't tell people who you are, where you live. Don't give them your phone numbers, and don't call them. And don't meet them after school if they say they're 12 years old and they want to go hang out at the mall, or if they're 14 and they want to go down and skateboard. Don't meet those people after school, because you don't know who they are. And, you don't know, it could be a child sexual predator just trying to get a hold of you. So that's why I'm saying it's so important to get the information, right? And so if you're a young person, make sure that you do that. So we'll get started on this child abuse monument, create and use personalized coping lists from irvingstudios.com. And we were looking at, create and use personalized coping lists and why people really should, especially survivors of child abuse, adult survivors of child abuse, because, the more difficult of a time that we're having, it says the harder it is to remember the things that helped us to get through, right, to manage the stress. So if we have our coping lists, then we can refer back to them, right, when we're feeling stressed out, because we've already created these coping lists when we were feeling pretty good, see. So then we'll have these just in case we just sort of spiral downward, right? And if something stressful happens, we'll have our list with us, right? And it says write down even the obvious, just anything. It says, that your perceptions, creativity, problem-solving abilities change dramatically while feeling good, bad, angry, tired, or empowered. So we need to write down the obvious along with other less obvious strategies for coping. And so they said here there's 4 activity lists that are helpful for survivors, and that's to take care of ourselves. So it says take care of yourself and stay healthy. That's 1. Create boundaries, 2. Relieve stress, 3. And cope with crisis. That's 4. And so we were looking at that on Wednesday morning. And so I wanted to kind of continue on from there. And it says stability and well-being are greatly anchored by being surrounded by the ordinary, nurturing and looking after oneself. When you are not overwhelmed by memories or stress, most of the requirements and concerns of self-care seem obvious and straightforward. But trauma has a way of blurring the ordinary as extraordinary surfaces and seems to take precedence. And the following are some ideas for the kinds of things that may go on a daily, weekly activities to take care of yourself list. And these are not presented as a comprehensive list, and they are not the right list for any one particular person. So they said here it's important for us, for you to come up with your own personalized coping strategy list, right? So that's for their recommendations is that we would all have our own personalized coping list, right? And because like they were saying, and I've seen on other websites as well, that we're all different, and what might work for me might not work for you, and so that's why it's very important to get our own list, our own coping lists. And so it says manage stress before it gets out of control. It says the trauma you experienced as a child was terrible. The vulnerability and sensitivity that those tragedies created in you is very real, and all people have to manage their feelings and life stresses. It says here, all people have to manage their feelings and life stresses. As a survivor of trauma, you have to work at it harder than many others. And it says it is far easier to gain control of a bad feeling before it spirals into despair and full-blown crisis. And they have links and stuff that you can click on when you go to that website. That website's www.irvingstudios.com. And it's Michael C. Irving's website. He's a psychotherapist, like I was saying, and so he knows. He's been there. He's a survivor as well as a psychotherapist. So, he knows. He's been there. And that's why I like what he's doing, because he knows what people have gone through, and as a psychotherapist knows what's good for people and really tries to help people out, and I think that's just awesome. It says take care of yourself daily, regularly. This is the next one. Referring to a daily, weekly activities to take care of yourself and stay healthy list is a good way to make sure that you are staying on top of things. Looking at your regular activity list is also a means of having an emotional thermometer. Skipping activities such as eating regular meals, doing exercise, or taking time for leisure can be a sign that you are being triggered or that some stressful issue is surfacing that you may be unaware of. You may even start to notice associations between the types of activities you do not do and the kinds of issues that are coming up. And through an early warning system, decisions can be made about going to therapy, getting extra therapy, and also doing what you need to relieve tension or work through adversity. And so that's just the thing, right? Sometimes if we don't have a routine, it helps to have some type of a routine, especially when we're just trying to heal and to learn to cope with adult survivor issues of child abuse. And routines could be, for instance, they have list 1. Make yourself a list of daily, weekly activities to take care of yourself. And they list off 10 things here. And the first one being shower every day. 2, take a long walk 3 times a week. 3, listen to music to start your day. 4, have some form of leisure every day. And 5, make time for therapy. 6, do 20 minutes of journaling twice during the week and on each weekend day. 7, eat regularly. 8, get sufficient sleep and sleep in on Saturday. And 9, vacuum and straighten. And 10, make your own personalized list. So that's the thing. That's just some of the things that he listed there, because those are just normal daily activities: showering, getting some exercise, making time for some therapy, having some leisure time during the day, every day. This is just ideas that are kind of what people need to do every week. Vacuuming and straightening, right? One could be like pay the bills, balance the checkbook, this type of stuff. Stuff that nobody really wants to do. But okay, well, maybe some people do, but I don't. I'm not I'm not into domestic stuff. I'm not really into like sitting around cleaning house and stuff like that. So I tend to put stuff off. And then when it becomes a big mess, then I'm sort of finding myself having a hard time coping with it because I don't want to deal with it. And so if I just did a few things every day, it wouldn't get like that. You know what I mean? And I think that's just something I need to work on. And then I wouldn't feel so overwhelmed, right? We kind of sometimes do things to ourselves and then pay the price for it. It's kind of like people that let their bills slide and they just don't pay their bills and then they're stressed out because even if they had the money and they just didn't pay them, right? I've seen people do that, and then they're stressing because they didn't pay them and they could have because they had the money, but they just didn't do it. See, these are the things that we have to do to maintain our lives, right? And going for doctor's appointments, I quite often put all of that off. I find that I don't like going to the doctors, and I find it that for physical ailments and stuff like that, because I never really had gone to the doctor and really don't like to go. You know what I mean? I spent a lot of time trying to help my mom because my mom was very sick her whole life. So I spent a lot of time with her trying to help her get to her doctor's appointments. And really, my life was sort of on hold while we were doing that. You know what I mean? Her life came first. Her whole health and well-being took precedence, right? Took precedence. So I just took all the kids took a back seat, like, just to try to keep my mom alive, right? And that's the sad thing, you know what I mean? Because as children, we were overlooked, right? My parents' health came first, and the children's health just didn't matter. And even to the point where my sister had sliced her eye with a piece of metal on a fence one time when she was running, and my parents weren't going to take her to the doctor, and they were just going to try to just let it heal on its own. And this one neighbor came over and told my dad that they had to take her to the doctor to get her eye checked out, but they didn't want to, and they actually really put up a big fuss about it because they just didn't care, because it was all about my parents. So see, when you're an adult survivor of child abuse and neglect, it's really hard to sometimes do the things that we know, most average people have no problem doing, and it's hard for us, right? So that's the whole issue. I'm the type that stays away from doctors, and I don't want to go, and I generally have to be taken in by ambulance if I end up going, because it has to be something that serious before I'll go do anything about it. And so it's just a part of my makeup. I was never given any care, or I had dental appointments and stuff all the time. But as far as physical ailments and stuff like that, no, it was all about my parents, right? So as an adult survivor, I should put that on my list to make sure that I'm keeping up on things like that. It's so important for our own health and for our own growth and healing, right? To take care of ourselves. And if you didn't learn to take care of yourself, most children who are abused and grow up in an abusive home are not being taken care of, and their parents probably or caregivers are not taking care of themselves either, probably, because that's the whole issue. That's why there's the dysfunction and the abuse going on in the first place. Most average normal people don't abuse their children. It's just people that are either having mental issues or substance abuse issues or anger management problems. People who have sort of a hatred for life might abuse their children. People who have all kinds of emotional problems abuse children. People who have mental issues, like I said before, and there's so many people that do. They're just not diagnosed. They abuse children, right? And they might not be doing it on purpose. It just might be the only thing that they know, and it might be, that they don't know any other way, to handle the situation. So that's the whole issue, right? So if you grow up like that, it's very hard to learn how to do this stuff on our own. That's why I always promote therapy. I've never gone, and I plan on. I wouldn't mind having a counselor, you know what I mean? Somebody to talk to, but I'm sort of doing my own self-help, and but I know that I can reach out and get help. And if I needed help and I felt that I couldn't cope, then I'd be the one to make the phone call, and I'd be phoning to get some help, because I saw, two of my brothers go to their graves because they just could not get any help for some reason. You know what I mean? It didn't work for them. Society life just didn't work for them. They couldn't get a grip on how to live. And that's so sad because I watched them suffer their whole entire lives with their graves, and people blame them that, oh, well, they were losers, and they suffered as children and didn't get any help. Right? And they have all kinds of problems, emotional problems. Just realize that and no matter which yeah, I got dropped from my show. Sorry about that. I don't know why, but my computer decided to do something strange, and it just dropped me from my show. So I'm glad to be back, and I just wanted to finish up with this making a daily, weekly activity list. Yeah, it's just important to have a list that reminds us, of the things that we need to do that we find that we kind of put off. For instance, taking care of the bills, going grocery shopping, making sure that we eat regular meals and get some exercise, maybe stretching, to remind ourselves to do some stretches and just things like that, or make time for therapy, make time for journaling and whatnot, right? So I think that is such a good idea. And, I have yet to do it. And I was going to do it back a long time ago when I saw these lists. I was actually going to make my own coping list. And I haven't done it yet. And I really should. And I should spend some time this summer. I should make a reminder note for myself to spend some time this summer to make some coping lists to remind myself to do some of these things that I actually forget to do or just put off, and that are kind of good that relieve stress and actually make me feel better because I'm accomplishing things, I'm getting things done, which obviously helps build confidence, right? And you start thinking, hey, I am taking care of things. I feel pretty good because I'm doing it. I'm being responsible, right? And for my own well-being, right? Which is very important. We really need to be in full control of our healing, right? We have to be proactive about it, right? So that's the thing. It's so important to make these lists and do that. And it says there's other lists here as well, like boundary problems flare up during hard times, burn up that stress. List number 3 would be managing stress and managing our crisis. List number 4, make yourself a list of what to do in a crisis. And those are so good. And then there's all kinds of information here on grounding and creating physical boundaries, creating a container, creating a safe environment in the here and now, self-nurturing, just some really awesome stuff. There's like keeping busy, healthy distractions, art and playful activity. This is all stuff that we can do to help ourselves cope. When things are just a little bit out of control and we feel like we're spiraling kind of backwards in our healing instead of moving forward at a steady pace, which is what they suggest, It's so important to have things that will anchor us and ground us and keep us grounded and focused, because that's the whole issue. A lot of people who have survived child abuse as children, adult survivors might have issues like post-traumatic stress disorder, or all kinds of anxiety problems. And so, if something overwhelms us, it takes us off track of where we should be and where we were, and kind of throws us back a bit, right? So that's the whole issue. If we stay focused and have our coping list to help us stay focused, and then of course have someone to talk to and get some support at the same time, we're bound to make a little bit of headway in our healing. I know I have. And but I think the coping list is such a great idea, and I'm gonna this summer I'm actually gonna do that. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna go through the Survivor to Thriver workbook, and that's from Adult Survivors of Child Abuse website, a Morris Center program, which is at www.ascasupport.org, and they have a Survivor to Thriver workbook on there. It's free, anybody can do it. The first 30-something pages are safety first on there, just to make sure you can actually do the workbook, safely, and you won't hurt yourself or hurt someone else, right? And so that's the whole issue. It's so important to make sure that we're okay to go through healing, and that's why I think it's important to have a therapist or a counselor. If you think you might have not be able to cope doing the actual therapy, then you really need to have a counselor to walk through it with you, right? Or a therapist, right? So that's the whole issue, right? I was okay to do it on my own, so I knew that. Because 3 years ago I made a pledge to myself that I was going to fight to live instead of fight to hurt myself or fight to die. And so, my whole outlook changed as soon as I decided to do that. It was my decision to make, and I thought, hey, I've got control over my life, and I can control what I do to myself. I need to be good to myself, and I need to fight to live and fight to have a good life and pull as many people along with me as I can. So that's the whole issue right now. As soon as I decided to do that, that's when my healing actually really started, because I was willing to allow myself to heal and to allow myself to feel and experience the things that needed to be experienced and deal with what I needed to deal with. And what I did was I started writing a blog. I wrote my own personal blog on Blogger, and I would just write as it just started coming out, and I would come home every night and after work or just sitting around the apartment, and it would just all come out, and I wouldn't really even have to edit it. It would just come out just like that. So I put it in the blog, and I just left it there. It was a public-facing blog. And then in Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, which I am the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, volunteer position, they saw my blog and they said, it really needs to be a book. You should publish that. And I had never intended really to publish it. But then I thought, why not? Because I hope that other people will see that there is hope, and that, we've all come from, if you've survived abuse of any kind, then it's just great that you're still here. And you're a survivor, right, not a victim. And so that's the whole issue, right? I thought, yeah, this might help other survivors to keep moving forward and to realize that we are going to experience some bad things and we are going to have tough times, and this is what life is really quite often throws at us, But we can do it. We can make it. And that was my thing, because my brothers, I wish I could have convinced my brothers to hang in there and that they could do it and they could make it. But I was when they died and one killed himself, we were all trying to support them, but they did not get the help they needed. And so that's why I thought, I want to be one more voice out there. And so I hope that you will check out my book. You can find it at lulu.com. It's called A Life of Death, The Redemption, and it's all about my personal story. So all the proceeds are going to Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and I just want it to go to stop child abuse and to help survivors. So that's the whole issue. I don't want the money. And so I hope that you will pick up a copy, and then remember that it is going to help stop child abuse and help prevent child abuse and help survivors of child abuse, right? So we have about a minute left, and I thank you so much for tuning into my shows. I really appreciate all the people who are listening to the archives. I love you all so much. Most of you are all my friends. And I know I have so many friends in Australia, so many friends in the UK, and in Canada, and in the United States. I love you all so much. And I thank you, everybody who's listening and tuning into my shows, and thanks for your support. And, I hope that you have a great day. Make sure you keep reaching out. Get that help. Keep that hope alive. And, if you need something, get a hold of me on Blog Talk Radio, or you can send me a message, or you can get a hold of me on Facebook. So have a great day, everybody. I'll be back on tonight. Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then again, my own show, Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention, is up to us shortly after that. So I'll be on for almost a couple hours here tonight. So you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. And just make sure that you do reach out and get some help. And if I can do anything for you, let me know. And the link for the Blog Talk show for Dreamcatchers, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.